evil in the world. I get a feeling that today there is some disturbance in the system. We will sort it out in due course. But let us continue on our talk today. Evil in the world. Now, this is a very fundamental question. We all say, and I also say, and everybody says, that we are part of the divine. The divinity is inside us. We are part of the universal consciousness. The consciousness which governs the entire universe, or we can say we are part of Paramatma. So if we are part of Paramatma, if we are part of divinity, and if we are part of what we call, the universal consciousness, then why do we do wrong things? Why do we kill people? Why do we commit crimes like rape, theft, burglary? Then also the question arises why people are born on the streets, while people are starving. Recently in Corona, while some young children, 3-year-old child, 5-year-old child, they have lost their parents. They have been rendered orphan. Why this happened? Why this evil has taken place? Why Corona itself came and is, killing people in such a large number? So all these questions arise in human mind, and this is not something recent. These questions have been coming to human mind for centuries, for millennia actually, for millennia. So first we should understand a little bit about the theory of this thing. You see, this question is more prevalent in Western world. This question was not raised in India before, because we accepted everything as given by Paramatma, as given by the Almighty. But the Western world raised this question in a more fundamental way. And this question has its root in Aristotle. Aristotle propagated a concept in which he said that the two opposites cannot exist together. That is what he said. And let me read out one or two sentences about him here. I got them down. One of them reads like this: it is impossible for the same thing to belong and not to belong at the same time. To belong and not to belong. That is, the two opposites cannot exist together. Another sentence said by him is, it is impossible to hold the same thing, to be and not to be. Whether it exists or whether it doesn't exist. Either it exists, it exists. It doesn't exist, it doesn't exist. That's what he says. And the third one, he says, the opposite assertions cannot be true at the same time. Now, this is what the origin of Western philosophy is. So they say that if the good is in existence, the bad or the evil should not exist. If the happiness is in existence, the suffering should not come. So they say that they name God because they believe that he does all the good things, and therefore they called him God. So the God was linked to good, and they didn't know what to do with the evil, because evil is a reality, it exists in the world. But they could not assign evil to the God because of this philosophy that the two opposites cannot exist together. They feel that the God cannot give this evil, and therefore the evil comes from somewhere else, and therefore they invented a person called Satan. That the Satan has given the evil, he is the source of evil, and God is the source of good. So this is how the theory of evil emerged, in the Western world. And they actually propounded there are two different persons sitting outside the universe, one governing the good and another governing the evil. So then, if this is true, then I would easily say that if the God cannot even control the evil, why should I bother for the God? I should better go to the Satan because he is more powerful. He is able to exist with all his evils despite the power of the God. So that doesn't solve the problem. This Western answer to this problem takes us nowhere. There have been a lot of writings on this issue. There are books which have been written why the evil exists in the world. They are very, very thick books exactly on this issue. And people have identified multiple reasons for existence of evil. Let me give you some of those reasons which I have. The one is that the problem of suffering is in the religions of the world. They see that religions of the world cause the sufferings. That is one answer given by somebody. Then the straight answer is, then why do you have religion? You forget about religion. Why do you have Christianity? These are the people who have given this answer as Christians. So then why do you have a religion? You abolish Christianity, you abolish all the religions and get rid of suffering. Is it possible? I don't think that is possible. Because the child who is born in the beginning, he belongs to no religion. He is 1 year old, he doesn't know what is religion. Still he is suffering. He has got some ailment in the very time of his birth. Or he has been born in a family where they are not able to feed him properly. So that answer takes us nowhere. Then there is another answer which is given is that everything decays in time and therefore evil is essential. Because you get good things, the good will diminish over time, it will slowly depreciate and disappear, and ultimately you will reach the sufferings. So there is another answer, but that also takes us nowhere, because it means that everything begins at a good stage and then slowly after depreciation, it goes down to the suffering, but which is not true. There are many cases they don't get any, happiness anywhere. They start with suffering and they end with suffering. So where is the question of depreciation of good? That doesn't happen. So that answer also doesn't take us very far, not very close to the truth. Then we have another answer, that suffering makes you strong. Suffering is a sort of lesson in the life. It gives you some, it teaches you something, and therefore suffering is inevitable. But that is no answer. It means the suffering is part of life. That is what it says. It means the suffering has come from the same God who has given you the goodness. And therefore, the good and suffering, they are existing together, to which they don't agree. They don't agree that the good and suffering come from the same source. It's not possible. So all these, there are many answers like this. They take us nowhere, these answers. So we need to examine this issue in a very, great detail, because this question will come to everybody's mind sooner or later. Why these people are suffering? Particularly in Corona Kal, you can see people having tremendous wealth. I know one or two people who have enormous resources. They could buy the entire hospital, but they could not get a hospital bed. At this particular time, they could not get the medicine. The wealth they had was of no use to them. And they had a lot of friends, but none of the friends could, get them a hospital bed. So these things are a reality today. We know the Chief Secretary of Bihar was not able to get a hospital bed and he died. And we also know many other cases like this. Now, very powerful people, very wealthy people, people with large number of friends, they could, you know, could not get any help from anywhere despite so many resources at their disposal. Why this happened? What are the reasons? So we have these questions which we need to ask. Now, I will start this topic in a way, again, going back to the Christian thought, and then we will come to Buddhist thought, and then we will address in Sanatan Dharma how we address this question. Now, the God is defined in Western thought in a way that there are three words which are used very commonly. That he is omnipresent, he is omniscient, and he is omnipotent. Omnipresence means he is everywhere. Omnipotent means he is all powerful. Omniscient means he knows everything. Everything he is aware of. This word Om, by the way, comes from the word Om we have in our, Indian thought, and that represents the same word Om. Om added with present, that is present everywhere. So the word actually originates from Sanskrit word Om. So if this God is omnipotent, that is all the power, why can't he defeat Satan and get rid of evil? It's a very simple question. Omniscient, he knows everything. If he knows the sufferings of all the people, he also knows the suffering of a 2-year-old child who has been rendered orphan. But what is the answer to that? Why can't he cure that? Why doesn't he do that? Why is not doing it? Despite all the powers he has. He's omnipresent, he can do anything, but he's not able to do it. So these questions keep arising despite all these three words which Western thought has used for the God. And they could not find answer, and as I told you, they have used the word Satan to explain it, but that's only a superficial explanation given on the surface without any proper explanation behind it. Now, there are a lot of Western philosophers who have also written on this issue. Leibniz is one of them, the mathematician, who has also written on this. But we will not go into those thoughts today. Now, I would like to go on first on the Buddhist thoughts today, and then we will expand on the Hindu philosophy later. Now, Buddha, we know his life. He was Siddharth. He was a prince in a royal family. His father was king. He had access to everything, whatever he wanted. He lived in palaces. There was no dearth of wealth. There was no dearth of women. There was no dearth of any, other pleasure he wanted to have in life. But he one day, decided to leave all those pleasures of life. In fact, there's a story that at the time of his birth, some of the priests made a forecast about his life, that either he will become a saint and he will leave the life and go to forest, or he will become a great emperor. So his father was very keen that he does not leave the palace and he doesn't go to the, to the forest. He should stay and he should become a big emperor. So he kept him confined to the palace and the surroundings of the palace, making him available all the pleasures of life, so that he never felt of going anywhere else. But by chance, one day he left the palace, he went outside, and somebody was crying with pain and he was suffering. So he asked his companion who was taking him around, what is this? That this person is sick, he has got some problem, health problem, and therefore he's crying. He's suffering in his body pain, his wound is very deep, things like that. He was explaining. And the Buddha realized his pain. And then he went, a little while further down the road. And he saw somebody was carrying a dead man. And, they were carrying his dead body to the cremation ground. So he asked him, what is that? That he is a person who is dead. What do you mean by dead? He has never seen a dead person before. He says this is, the life goes ultimately from the human body, and then everybody faces this reality that he is dead one day. So Buddha was he was shaken actually. He had not even known by that time that there was something called death, because he was kept away from all those, realities, ground realities of life. And then obviously he started meditating on this issue, on this thing, and he left the palace. His fundamental principle, which was and has been, and that is also the principle of Buddhism today, that dukh is inevitable in life. Dukh is the foundation of life. That is where Buddha begins actually. दुख अनिवार्यता है. Suffering is inevitable in life. That is his first fundamental principle. Now they talk about suffering. They talk about pain. They talk about evil. Evil. That is, suffering is evil in a way. And Buddha says this is the fundamental truth of life. The same Buddha who also believes that God is good and God is all powerful. He also believes, though he has not said that in so many words, because the Buddhist philosophy has a different explanation of the same thing, but fundamentally it means the same. And then he says that this dukh comes from where? He says it comes from your desires, ichhaen, your desires, your expectations. They are the source of all the sufferings you get in life. So, the beginning of the philosophy of Buddhism starts with dukh, it starts with suffering, it starts with evil in that sense. And then he says, the cause of this evil, the cause of this suffering comes from your desires. Now we all have desires. Who doesn't have desire? So then obviously all of us have pain in life, all of us have sufferings in life. So how can you avoid this inevitable evil from the life? How can you do that? Why it comes? And then of course he gives his 8 principles. Buddha explains his 8 principles in life which can be used to alleviate and to do away with the sufferings. The sufferings can be removed. The sufferings can be kept away from human life, provided we follow that 8-fold path given by Buddha. So the Buddhist philosophy starts with the sufferings. If you look at another philosophy, the Jainism, they actually also start with suffering. They actually start with what we call tap. Tap means to make your body suffer. That is the meaning of tap. Somehow it is the pain of the body which will bring good in you. So this is that one of the explanations in the Western philosophy that why there are sufferings. The sufferings are because they want to teach you a lesson in the life. And that is why these sufferings come. And the Jainism starts on that concept. That you reduce all your needs, use the minimum, no hinsa. All that. The life should be absolutely, what we call, there's a word there in Jainism, aparigraha. Aparigraha means you keep your needs to the bare minimum. And bare minimum is very, very bare there, you see. You can't even use your sleepers because even sleepers can cause hinsa. So you don't even turn your, sides in the night because the turning can cause hinsa. You don't eat more than once a day because even eating causes leads to hinsa. So there they begin with hinsa and they begin with sufferings again. So look at our own religions, Buddhism and Jainism. They start their journey. The whole religious lessons start with the process that there are sufferings in the life and we have to learn from those sufferings. We have to get lessons from those sufferings. So this is how the chapter of sufferings is. The sufferings are inevitable reality. That is what Buddhism says. That is what Jainism says. And Christianity, they say that it is the opposite of the God. It is created by Satan, and we should defeat Satan to get rid of sufferings. That is their philosophy. So, basically, the theoretical background is that the Aristotle's approach that the two opposites cannot exist together, and therefore the good and the evil, they should not exist together. If the God has created good, there's somebody else who should have created evil, not God. God cannot create evil because he is good and he can only give good, and that's why it is God. On the other hand, we have seen Buddhism, we have seen Jainism to some extent, and we found that sufferings are inevitable in life. Now we will go to the cause, but that will go in the next session because that's a very long process. How we will analyze it step by step, how this happens and where the explanation is given, and what is the most convincing explanation of evil in the world and why it exists. So we will go into great detail in the next session on that particular aspect. But today I would like to stop here, and I would request you, if you have any questions left over from the previous session or from today's session, you are most welcome to raise those questions now.